Hey everyone, Django Fett here, hunting down games, comics, TV shows, movies, and more. And with Emperor Palpatine being brought to life in some weird way in Rise of Skywalker, there is no better time to talk about the very story inspired, which is the Dark Empire Trilogy. Now, this is a series that came out in early to mid 90s and written by Tom Veitch, who did the original Knights of the Old Republic, aka Tales of the Jedi series. This series eventually became Veitch's infamous creation, as he was there from the beginning to the end with the series, unlike Tales of the Jedi. And as expected, you can see a lot of references to Tales of the Jedi in the Dark Empire series. So on Wikipedia for Dark Empire, on the conception and release, Dark Empire was originally planned to be published by Marvel Comics. A single print ad for it was even released, but eventually found its way as a project at Dark Horse Comics, thank God, when they acquired the Star Wars license. In the late 1980s, Lucasfilm expressed interest in a Star Wars proposal from Tom Veitch and Cam Kennedy based on their work on the Light and Darkness War series. The original idea for Dark Empire revolved around the Empire using an imposter in Darth Vader's armor, or a replica of it, to use with a continuing symbol of fear to help force far-flung worlds into obedience. George Lucas personally shut down this concept and instead directed them to bring back the Emperor. And as you can see right there, Lucas did have some input on the expanded universe. Right there. It is unclear whether Lucas suggested the concept himself or merely approved it when pitched. Either way, it still makes the EU relevant. Additionally, Dark Empire was originally set shortly after the Battle of Endor, as this was a time frame in which the previous Marvel Comics series had led off. During the writing of the Thrawn trilogy, Timothy Zahn was asked to incorporate references and elements for Dark Empire into his books, since they were set chronologically later than the book. Zahn refused, however, so Dark Empire was relocated to being set after the events of Zahn's books, which I think are overrated. Some minor dialogue and art were altered to reflect the change, as it was too far along in production to implement any major corrections, and references to the Thrawn trilogy were inserted into the text of Dark Empire's opening crawl. It wasn't until Kevin J. Anderson's The Jedi Academy trilogy that Dark Empire was first referenced by a Star Wars novel. Characters and events mentioned in the holocron used in Dark Empire later formed the basis of the original Tales of the Jedi series. Now, with Dark Empire, the series has this reputation surrounding it, causing divisiveness within the EU community, whether they like the story and think it's really good or really bad. Honestly, I'm part of the really good category. So I'm going to go back into Wikipedia, and it says, Tom Veitch could hardly have known what George Lucas had planned for the prequels, which were not made for another 7 years. As such, The Chosen One seems to be contradicted by the story. The Sith surviving after Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, has been adopted by the rest of the expanded universe, taken as examples Lumia, Darth Sidious, or the One Sith. Even before the release of the prequel trilogy, some contributors to the expanded universe made known publicly their dissatisfaction with the decision to bring Palpatine back to life. In Vision of the Future, Timothy Zahn included a conversation that refers to the events of Dark Empire and Luke Skywalker, mentioning the resurrected Emperor, and Mara Jade retorting, "Whatever. Personally, I'm not convinced it was actually him." Okay. Veitch was criticized for having many pivotal events occur within a single panel or entirely off panel, which many fans found jarring, while other fans criticized the resurrection of the saga's main antagonists. However, Lucas himself praised the series according to Tom Veitch. So I'm going to run into the controversy section a little bit later at the end as well. But anyway, I will break down this review in several sections. So first I want to start with the story, then the characters, the audiobooks because they're worth mentioning, the artwork, then lastly my opinion and my rating at the end. So first, the story. I'll be spoiling quite a bit, so if you haven't read the series, you have been warned. I will start with Dark Empire 1, and then I will get to Dark Empire 2, and then Empire's End, then get to the character section. So first, Dark Empire 1, which came out initially from 1991 to 1992, set 6 years after the Battle of Endor, or 10 to 11 years after the Battle of Yavin, in completion for the series. War is raging across Coruscant, and Luke appears in a badass manner by deflecting a laser bolt from a freaking AT-AT back on itself, and you could tell this guy is a master now. Or so you think in the beginning. As Luke is uneasy after the battle and tells Leia and Han they should run, and he stays and gets sucked by a force storm, and we find, no shock here, the Emperor is resurrected. Luke is utterly shocked and knows he can't stand a chance and wants to learn the ways of the dark side to use against Palpatine, which is the exact way that another Veach created character faced as well, Ulic Qel-Dromo, as he wanted to do the same but failed to use the dark side for good. So what makes Luke do the same? New Imperial creations called World Devastators, which are 3,200 meters and twice the size of an Imperial Star Destroyer, and even suck up one into its gullet. And these things are practically unstoppable, and are sent to Mon Calamari to obliterate the world. Han and Leia try to find a way to get to Luke to free him in Biss and recruit aid in the form of Han's old buddies, and run into Boba Fett. And this is the first appearance of Boba in the expanded universe. I really don't want to count the Marvel Comics series, so that's just me. Solo escapes, and Boba will keep chasing Han throughout the series. When they find Luke, he is not a prisoner, but a servant to the Emperor, and gets captured. Later, Luke self-destructs the world's Devastators and is secretly betraying the Emperor, but the Emperor knew all along and transfers himself into a new clone body, and they battle, and the Emperor wins, but doesn't kill Luke. He wants him to witness the defeat. Leia then battles against Luke, and after some convincing, they join up and use battle meditation to destroy the Emperor and his flagship, and the series ends in a New Hope style, and concludes the first part of the series. Now the second story is Dark Empire 2, which came out in 1994 to 1995, so quite a few years after Dark Empire 1, which is a little unusual, and I don't know why it took so long, but with Tales of the Jedi starting up at the time, is a very hard and constrained time for Tom Veach, but at the same time, this is his golden age, probably his glory days for Star Wars. So a new lord has taken over for Emperor, and that is Executor Cedrus, and goes to war with another planet and loses that battle for once. The Empire loses, and eventually the Emperor is resurrected again with another clone body, and the Emperor is slowly going down with clone bodies. And in the background, Luke appears with ex-Dark Jedi Cam Salazar. This is explained more into the audiobook on what happens between them. This is Luke's first compadre to help against the Empire and build up the Jedi again. Luke is led by a holocron to go to a hidden planet thought lost forever called Ossus, or Ossus. Yes, that Ossus from Tales of the Jedi that was seemingly decimated by Exar Kun's followers. And we find that a group is still alive and are descendants of the Jedi, the Yasana. Cedrus finds Luke at Ossus, or Ossus, whatever you want to call it, and they fight, and as Cedrus is cornered, the tree Jedi Od Banar grabs him and sacrifices himself to save one of the Yasana. Eventually, two of the Yasana team up to become Jedi, and Od Banar was protecting the future of the Jedi with lightsabers and tombs. And while this is happening, Han and Leia do jack and run around doing random shit that is completely useless in the grand scheme of things. The Emperor then unveils his newest weapon, the Galaxy Gun, which can fire planet-destroying missiles through hyperspace to any planet he wants to. He chooses the home base of the Rebel Alliance, but some of the Alliance actually got away, and the ending is very dark and almost feels very similar to The Empire Strikes Back, and I really like the trend of these comics so far. And lastly, the final story is Empire's End, which came out in 1995, and this is my first time ever finishing the series and reading this story, and boy, are there problems. Oh my god. First, this is literally only 2 issues to conclude the series. Yeah, 2 issues. That's all you get, and it's also done by a different and an inferior artist. No offense. So, not good right there. Anyway, let's get to the story bit. The rebels are constantly running away since the Emperor has used his new weapon and fires it constantly. The Emperor is forced to occupy an inferior clone body and doesn't know what to do, so he consults with the Dark Lords in Korriban, who are willingly enough tell him to possess Leia's body to use as a new body. Okay. I'll just get to the shit later on. Sidious eventually finds Leia and tries to get to the child before he gets shot by Han, then possesses the android Jedi who sacrifices himself to save everyone, and both of them die, and the rebels send the Eclipse 2 into the galaxy gun and destroy Biss and the Empire right there, and that's how the series ends! Alright, let's get to the character section. So, Luke Skywalker is more badass than ever, and while people will admit Luke would never willingly fall to the dark side, just imagine for a second the ever-powerful presence of the Empire in your face and seemingly more invincible and practically invincible than ever. As Luke, I would do the same thing and try to use the dark side against them or, fall willingly and do the same thing. And he definitely redeems himself, and after the Dark Empire won, he tries to recruit Jedi, and it sets up for the Jedi Academy series. And he does make mistakes in Dark Empire, but that also makes him a flawed human character, and that's what we want. We want to see flawed characters, not invincible badasses like everywhere. That's the beauty of writing some of these characters. Also, I love the Vader's outfit he has on. Definitely his best wardrobe by far, in my personal opinion. Then we have Leia, Han, and Chewbacca who are together for the whole series. And Leia was the one who saved Han in the first book, and I liked Han in this, but afterwards, they were in the back burner for me and didn't really add to the series. And then we have the Empire, who is this menacing villain, especially in the beginning, as he seemed invincible and would have clones to constantly revive him, and was very conniving. And the Empire came out even stronger and tougher than ever with the revival of Palpatine. Let's move on to the audiobook section. So there is an audiobook collection of the whole series, believe it or not, unlike Tales of the Jedi, sadly. So Dark Empire 1 is a cookie-cutter comic to audiobook drama with liberties taken, like the battles, but I feel like they really add a lot, and it's something different. And it has a really legendary cast with John Kaigan, let rest in peace, as Luke Skywalker, and I had to confirm this myself, and because it sounded really familiar to me, but Lando is played by the freaking Lando himself, Billy D. Williams. I had to confirm this and had to check, and when I found out it was Billy D, I thought that was freaking awesome to bring him back. Dark Empire 2 is a little different, as they changed Boba's voice effects, and I think they changed a character, Sala, her voice effects too, which was kind of weird. I mean, you got to be consistent with this, not change it up, just in my opinion. Especially voice actors too, that's just me. Boba Fett just sounds awful in both audiobooks. But to be fair, they had no idea what Boba would sound like in the future, and really a character brought to the EU, established more later on, I guess. But I have to admit, this does have some really cool stuff, like how Luke battles Cam Salazar and brings him back to the light, and that's not even in the comic. Now on to the artwork, and this is a bit of a controversial subject, as I think people are divided on it, or so I believe. But I love it with Dark Empire 1 and 2. And what I believe makes it unique is Cam Kennedy, who not only does the penciling, but also does the inking and coloring, which is mind-blowing in this age. Today, you would be lucky to find that. I just absolutely love the artwork, and the coloring with the yellow, green, and orange hues really added a dark era element, and you feel the dark side just oozing out of this comic and really added to this story. And what's really nice is Cam Kennedy ended up doing a few other Boba Fett stories, and were actually pretty good. And then we get to Empire's End artwork, and that's a whole other story. The artwork is done by James Bakey, and he does have the same 3 roles like Cam Kennedy, but I feel the basic artwork is atrocious, and the coloring itself is completely out of place and does not fit whatsoever. This did not flow for me at all. The artwork, which is supposed to be one of the selling points for me, just failed completely. Now let's get to my final opinion and my rating. So I really enjoyed the series overall, other than reading Empire's End for the first time, which I thought it was terrible. I mean, the Empire's grand plan was to freaking abduct Leia's newborn and possess the body and have his disciples take care of him until he gets older. Talk about horrible plot and writing. My God, just an incredibly dumb ending. Vish just lost me after that point. But I did like Dark Empire 1 and 2 and where they were going, and think they're amazing works. And the audiobooks really added a lot more interest and a new dimension and spin to comics, and you would expect. I love the concept by bringing back the Emperor and adding new ships, technology, most of the characters, artwork, and where the series was till the end, and honestly a very good read. So I am giving the Dark Empire series a What I always say is don't listen to haters, even myself at times. Experience it yourself and be your own judge. If you're interested in getting this comic, then I recommend you get the paperbacks for Dark Empire 1 and 2, or single issues, then get the single issues for Empire's End. This comic is very weird for availability. The Dark Empire hardcover, I was lucky to get online and use condition and have the single issues. However, the Empire's End paperback is pretty much one of the hardest books to get and very expensive. I mean, this is currently selling for like $60 to $100 right now, just for the paperback of 2 issues. 2 issues for Empire's End, the paperback. Okay? And if you're not interested in any of that, get the digital versions as they are cheap or get it for free. By the time I'm done editing this review, I will get to work on my top 5, top 10 list for 2019. And that's going to be a lot of work. Then back to Star Wars reviews, starting with the Mandalorian TV show and around the January or February time. Just can't believe this year is almost over. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to please like this video, comment down below, tell me what you think of the Dark Empire series, and if you're looking forward to the Rise of Skywalker movie. For some reason I am, some weird way, but we'll see how it goes. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel, Django Fett, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace.